Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Hi, nice to see some familiar faces and some new faces here. My name is Catherine. We just want to welcome you. Thanks for joining us today. I'll be one of your co-hosts. While we get going here, I just want to welcome you all to introduce yourself in the chat. Just with your name, either where you're from or what school you're at, if you'd like, or anything else that you find interesting that you'd like to share, you're welcome to. But again, yeah, it's nice to see some familiar faces and some new faces here today. So let's see. We're excited to have Ben and Aubrey with us today from Walker Miller Energy Services. So as I mentioned, I think we're just gonna get started here since we're a few minutes into noon and we wanna make sure you all have enough time to get your questions answered and get through our kind of agenda today. So I will be kind of co-hosting with my coworker, Jade Scott from the Detroit Promise team, as well as Ben and Aubrey today. So again, as you're getting connected with your audio and video, we can stay, I'll be kind of going in and out of mute, like on and off of mute, obviously. So if you want to stay on mute, that's perfectly okay. We are recording today's session for the Let's Detroit YouTube channel. So again, if you're uncomfortable with being recorded on video, you're of course welcome to turn your video off. So I just want everyone to be aware of that. This is going to be our kind of run of show for today. We'll start with some introductions. As you can see in our agenda, we have lots of time that we're going to pause for questions. So you're welcome to either put your questions in the chat or speak up when we kind of do our pause for questions in between our topics here. You are going to get a copy of today's slide deck so that you can download that and save that for yourself, and you can do as whatever sort of follow-ups you would like to do with Ben and Aubrey after today's conversation. So we want to encourage you to do that. We've provided tons of follow-up links for you to use in the slide deck. So again, thanks for joining us today. So I'm going to get us started with just a brief background again about Let's Detroit. We're one of the co-hosting organizations today. I'm the engagement manager with Let's Detroit, which is a program of the Detroit Regional Chamber. We are focused on talent retention and attraction for Southeast Michigan. And as you'll see on letsdetroit.com, we are aggregating all things live, work, play, and volunteer in the region, but through the eyes of young professionals who are building their careers here in all sorts of different fields. And that's why we're excited to have Ben and Aubrey here today to talk about their jobs and their industries and why they like working in this space. So you'll see on letsdetroit.com, all of the content is written by and for young professionals and college students in the region. So, and it's a wealth of knowledge and people for you to connect with and reach out to ask questions about any of these various career paths that you might be thinking about. So next I'm going to pass it on to Jade to talk a little bit more about the Detroit Promise.
So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jade Scott, and I am the manager with the Detroit Promise. The Detroit Promise is a scholarship for students that live in and attend high school in Detroit. We offer a tuition-free path to college by partnering with 26 colleges in Michigan. So those are community colleges where students can get an associate's degree or do a trade certificate, and also four-year universities. We work a lot with our high schools as well, doing K-12 outreach, and we've helped over 5,000 scholars attend college since 2013 when we got started. We also have campus coaches at our community colleges that help students navigate college life. And then we have been partnering with Catherine with Let's Detroit to really have these conversations around college to career. With all of the students that we work with, we understand we got you to college and you're there and we want you to go further. So we're trying to make those connections. So we really started these webinars as a way to do career exposure, and then to also talk about different companies that students can get engaged with. So once they graduate, these are the opportunities that are available for them.
Awesome, thanks, Jade. So now I want to introduce our guests for today, Ben and Aubrey from Walker Miller Energy Services. Ben is the Director of Community Development at Walker Miller. And we also have Aubrey, who's the Senior Program Manager at Walker Miller Energy Services. So wanted you all to get to know that I've included their brief job descriptions here, but we'll dive into this a little bit more. And then I'm going to take some notes on this slide when I exit out of here. But want you to know about Walker Miller Energy Services because they're local to the Detroit area. And we want you all to get to know them a little bit more and what types of jobs kind of exist in this space. So Ben is also one of our Let's Detroit ambassadors. You can connect with him directly on the Let's Detroit website after this conversation if you'd like to. And we've just included a couple links here on how to connect with them. So Ben, I think I'm going to pass it on to you first, or whoever would like to start to tell us a little bit more about Walker Miller as a company, and then a little bit more about your roles there.
Sure, thanks, Catherine. Hey, everybody, and thanks to Let's Detroit for having us today. This is pretty cool. So yeah, as Catherine said, my name is Ben Dueweke. I work with Walker Miller Energy Services and have been with the company for about 8 years. It'll be 8 years in February. Company is celebrating its 20th anniversary this year and has seen a lot of growth really in the time that I've been there. I'll talk about that in a minute. But the bread and butter and the core of Walker Miller is as an energy efficiency company, and really that's just how we do what we do. What we really are doing is we're serving communities all across the state of Michigan and indeed into Illinois and some other states now with resources to help them reduce their energy waste in their homes, and by doing that, help them ultimately save money on their energy bill and increase the bottom line of the household. And the great part about this job is that not only are we helping people to do that, to save money, but it's really an environmental issue as well. So we're, every light bulb that we install or piece of insulation in the attic that we commission to be installed is ultimately helping to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, reduce carbon emissions, and contribute to a more sustainable economy. So that being said, that's sort of how I got into this company. That's how I ended up working here. Out of college, I was very much driven by the need to and want to get into sustainability. And I'll probably get a little bit more into the details later, but found myself working at Walker Miller. There's about 12 people at the company at the time in 2013. We're pushing 120 right now. So we've really seen a lot of explosive growth over the last several years. And yeah, so that's kind of a broad overview of the company. I'm going to save a little bit of the more like operational stuff for Aubrey to get to here, and then I'm sure we'll get into more of the details about how I got here in a little bit later in the hour.
Awesome. Thank you, Ben. Yeah, I'm glad Ben went first. Ben has been with the company almost, not since the beginning, but he's been there since it really took off. And he's been a mainstay and has been really flexible in helping the company grow. And he leads a great community focus for the company, which is very important to Walker Miller Energy Services, is that we serve the community, especially the underrepresented communities that may not get that many resources as other communities. And on top of that, every community, so when it comes to operations or the community outreach efforts, community engagement efforts, what Walker Miller truly depends upon is how we treat people. And so Carla Walker Miller realized long ago that you need to give people the utmost of respect, and as well as give them an extraordinary experience. So that is why, as Ben stated, from 2013 to now, we jumped by a factor of 10 in the amount of people that work for us, and we have a lot more contracts because the utility industry recognized that about Carla Walker Miller, the founder and owner. Is that her customer service has always been on point. She treated every person like humanely, no matter if they had minimal means or if they lived in a fancy mansion. So talk a little bit about what I do is I am the senior program manager for the DTE contract, which is our biggest customer. What I do is I help manage the field. And those people out in the field do what Ben stated. They go out and they go in people's homes and they install some products that make your home more energy efficient, reducing your bill and reducing the carbon, your impact on the carbon footprint. We also do it for apartment buildings as well. So every residential unit or home in the state of Michigan that's under DTE, that's our jurisdiction. So we're all over the entire state. So I've been with Walker Miller for about a little over a year, September 30th of last year, although I've known Carla off and on since 2007. I've had many different careers. I'm a mechanical engineer by trade. I started before I even went to college, when I was in middle school, I worked for an architecture firm and actually designed floor plans and elevations at a very young age. And that's because my dad owned the company and made me work. I thought it was chores, but it taught me a lot. It taught me how to be professional, how to take a concept to reality. And from there, I've always had like a fascination with technology, with buildings, and how do we make things better for humanity? How do we become better stewards? So that eventually, through working in an architecture firm, working as a design engineer for GM, and then having my own company, a clean tech company that didn't get off the ground. It was fun, learned a lot, and then running an entrepreneurship program where I help companies start from concept and launch and sustain. I'm always looking for an opportunity to help folks be better stewards, and found that in Walker Miller when it comes to helping people become more energy efficient and save on their bills and carbon footprint positively.
If I can add a little bit, I realize that I sometimes jump into the details without really giving the broader picture of why a company like Walker Miller can exist and sort of where our market comes from. So if I can just give a little bit of background on that. So we are, as myself and Aubrey alluded to, an energy efficiency company, an energy efficiency contractor. And, we run these programs where we help people save energy. That's kind of the gist, right? So briefly, why does that exist? We, the state of Michigan in 2008 under then Governor Jennifer Granholm, passed really some landmark renewable energy and energy efficiency legislation. And basically these legislations said that for the regulated utilities, which are DTE and consumers and some of the other larger utilities in the state that are regulated by the Michigan Public Service Commission, those utilities have to do two things. They have to produce a certain amount of their total energy by renewable sources, and they were given a target year. So this was in 2008. It was to be implemented by 2015. And then the other one was they needed to reduce the amount of energy that their customers were using through energy efficiency programs by a percentage every year. And so the way they do that is, and this is common across the country, this sort of setup, right? So the legislator says you have to do it, and then the regulatory department says, here, we're going to enforce it. And so the way that happens is that you as a DTE bill payer or a consumer's energy bill payer has a line item on your bill, whether you're a commercial or residential customer, very small, usually a couple bucks for residential, maybe 15 bucks for commercial. And that money goes into a fund that funds these energy efficiency programs. And so at any point as a DTE customer, you can call DTE up, which is really calling Walker Miller, and say, I'd like a home energy consultation, which is the energy efficiency program. We will come in and for free, right, install these light bulbs and programmable thermostats and low flow faucet fixtures, all things that reduce your energy use in your home, which is great for you. Now, don't forget, technically, you've paid for this program on your bill, so it behooves you to take advantage of it. And then we count all of those measures. We count every light bulb and every thermostat, and all of those measures have a number attached to them, and as far as how much savings, gas or electric, they have. And we account for all of that, and we report it to DTE, and DTE reports to the state. And annually, they can say, state, we hit our goal this year, our legislative mandate, and so we'll continue on and run those programs again next year. And that happens for both commercial and the residential industry. So that's sort of why we're here and like what allows Walker Miller to exist as the company that it does today.
Thanks, Ben, for that additional context too. I'm curious too if anyone else on the call, if you want to put in the chat or use one of the reaction functions, if anyone locally has taken advantage of any of these programs yet, or if you know if your parents have in your homes or have looked into it before. Definitely want to, if you have any questions about those sort of things, definitely want to get those answered too today. But I think that would be a good one to explore. And I'm glad that, Ben, that you pointed out too that it's kind of something that everyone's already paying for. So that was one of my questions for later, is kind of some of the misconceptions around some of this work or some of these things of like that they're not affordable, or are they affordable, and all that sort of stuff. So we can get into that a little bit later too. And just really kind of like how that then also shows up in both of your jobs on a daily basis, of the types of conversations that you're having with people in the area, whether it's homeowners or someone who's interested in working there, of like, how much do I need to know about this stuff before I can start working in this field? So we'll kind of come and touch on all these different things as we go. So thanks for doing those introductions. And I think we'll pass it on to Jay to kind of go into a little bit. We're gonna backtrack a little bit and go forward. We're gonna cover a lot of different things, obviously, that you saw from the agenda. So Jade, I'll pass it on to you.
Thank you, Catherine. And thank you all for being here. So if you guys could take us back a little bit and talk about like, what did you study in college? Why did you study that? What steps you took to get to where you are today? So like maybe internships, or what opportunities did you take advantage of? If you all could touch on that a little bit.
Go ahead, Aubrey.
Okay, so I majored in mechanical engineering. Again, I grew up in an architecture firm, and I wanted to, I didn't know exactly where I wanted to go. I know I was fascinated by NASA, I was fascinated by vehicles, and I majored in mechanical engineering because I was used to doing physical design of objects and buildings and stuff like that. So when I got into Wayne State University as a freshman, I had an internship at Ford Motor Company. And ironically, I was working in their facilities department, so I was helping them with their architecture. I was presented with lots of other internship opportunities and co-op opportunities while I was at Wayne State, majoring in mechanical engineering. And I worked at GM, I think 3 summers. And then at one summer, I worked out in Colorado for, it's not necessarily a small business, maybe medium-sized business that had a lot of defense contracts and worked on radar systems and actually rockets as well. So, I've actually had like 4 different careers: architecture, vehicle engineering. I've been in energy twice. This is my 2nd stint. I've actually ran a wind farm in the past for GE. And I've also ran an entrepreneurship program for 10 years. So with that, I know it's kind of all over the place, with that is that, as all of you like grow and experience different things, you don't have to be locked into what you are doing. You can always strive to do something different or next. The only thing I would advise folks to do is to commit to something for a while, see if it's you, and if not, go find yourself. Go inquire. You guys being on this call today is a positive, because you're hearing the stories of two individuals who've had unique paths. So you've got to forge your own unique path, and that starts with you. One, finishing up school, right, and getting experience, and then if there's something else that you are desiring to do, go meet the people that do it. Go talk to folks, shadow them, ask them to be your mentor. So it's hard now too that we're in a COVID world and we're all on Zoom, right? I would much rather talk to you guys face to face in a larger room. But people still feel the need to connect. So I think you can reach out to folks, and I think they would probably, a lot of them would be welcoming to hear your questions, to be able to give you their experience, because we all need that connection. And I think you would help not just yourself in figuring out your paths, but you would help those individuals as well. I answered somewhat of the college thing, right? And I talked about beyond that. What is there something else that I may have missed, or?
No, that was spot on. So Ben, maybe if you could take us there a little bit, what your path looked like.
Yeah, most definitely. And I gotta say, Aubrey, I think you're right on. A big thing that I tell people, young professionals, or even folks that are my peers that are maybe looking at switching or pivoting, is to tap into your own curiosities. Somebody asked in the chat, like right at the top of the hour, what skills will people need, into the future and all of this. And I think that curiosity is not typically considered a skill, but it's something that we all have. And it's something that I think some people are a little bit more reluctant to tap into. It's like, no, but usually your curiosities come from some deep-seated either passion or interest. And I think that a lot of where I've gotten today has been because I sort of followed that. And I joke with people that, like, when I moved into Detroit and I got into this area, that I was just nosy about things. I always wanted to know what was going on. Like, tell me about that renewable energy group you're in, or like, let me join you, or are you open? Is that an open meeting, right? Whatever it is. So anyway, so I, like Aubrey, graduated with an engineering degree. Mine was actually in civil engineering, but in a similar vein. It was like, okay, I knew I wanted to get into, I had like this sustainability mindset, kind of from high school, kind of just because that's how I was raised. I was interested at the time in like I wasn't sure if I wanted to do architecture or engineering. I wanted to do high performance buildings. I really had a nose for like an interest for rehabbing old historic buildings and seeing those saved, but also like rehabbing them to really high performance standards. And I thought that was just the coolest thing. I also have sort of had an interest that was ancillary to that in renewable energy. And so after I graduated, I worked for a civil engineering firm for 6 months or so, because that's what you were supposed to do. I kind of took the first job that I had. It was very like sort of engineering. It was like an office building in Southfield with a big parking lot and a bunch of people working on computers and doing CAD, and it was not what I was all about. Like, that's not what I was geared toward. So I ended up quitting that job, taking a little bit of time for myself. I took a long couple-month road trip across the country, possibly with an intention of moving out to the Pacific Northwest, where I thought was like the mecca of sustainability in the country, right? And the combination of homesickness, running out of money, and also realizing that, yes, there is a lot of sustainability out here, but where there's not a lot, to my knowledge, is back home, where I kind of wanted to be anyway. And I said, well, maybe they could use a little bit more of that. And, that was partially me thinking that I could come in and I think I was just ambitious at that point. It was like, well, let's try and inject some of that positivity into my hometown. So I came back here, and in a short while ended up cold calling Walker Miller, who was a 12-person company at the time, kind of just like floating between different energy gigs, and kind of wasn't sure what they wanted to be when they grew up yet. And so started working with them, and they kind of said, yeah, we could use an engineer, and we have some things we think that you could do. And I said, great, so I'll be there. And I attribute a lot of where I am now to the curiosity, the willingness to be flexible, especially in a small business environment where we were growing and pivoting and had all sorts of issues and growing pains. But it's ultimately led to where we are today, which is a successful company growing nationally. And then I would also say I'd attribute, a lot of where I am and my network to just getting out and trying to get involved in things that were a little bit beyond Walker Miller, outside of that, 9 to 5 hour. And those things, whether that's a meeting of the U.S. Green Building Council or just a neighborhood meeting, those things will eventually coalesce into, building a broader and more diverse network that will help any career, whether it's sustainability or something else, I think.
So thank you both for sharing. It's good to hear what your path looked like to get where you are today. One thing, and Ben, you started touching on this, but what excites you both most about the work you do or the field that you're in? If you could just give us some insight there, that would be great.
So what excites me the most is, again, it's our this extraordinary experience that we give folks. It's free. So therefore, as Ben stated, the state government is behind it, right? They've passed legislation on the grant home. The utilities are on board because they have the support of the government, and everyone pays just a little bit. This is a small amount that people pay for this, like $1 or something like that, actually, per month. And then the fact that we actually go out and we make a difference, right? Seriously, our people are in cars all day long, all over the state, and they're going into people's homes and they're making it better for them. They are helping their bills get reduced. And not just that, they give advice and a full report that's sent to their email or printed out for them that tells them how to weatherize their homes better. So they walk around the entire home with the customers safely. Now that we're in COVID, we have masks on, we keep 6 feet, we sanitize everything that after we touch it. And they walk around, they say, look, there are cobwebs, that are accumulating above your window. That means there's a draft there. And, you can do things like take incense and put it up there and see the draft coming through a crack. And they say, hey, caulk that, right? They say you can put insulation in the basement between the joists at the against the wall to help, to minimize loss of heat. And it's just, so every time our people go into a home and give this great extraordinary experience and install free light bulbs and the aerator faucets and the fancy thermostats, programmable or Wi-Fi or programmable and Wi-Fi thermostats, they leave feeling like leaving the customer feel. Customers typically are like best friends with those people because they have done so much for them in like an hour's time, and it's all free and it's all to help them in their lives, with money and the carbon footprint and weatherization. Some of the homes you go in are can be rough in the condition that they're in, and it's we're like our people are like kind of like heroes at times. I mean, I've seen it where there have been elderly customers who you could see that it's harder for them to get around, and there's many things they need to do to their home. So when somebody comes in, talks to them, treat them with kindness, and does something to improve their home and make it better and safer for them, they are elated. So that's what really motivates me about the job at Walker Miller. And it's in line with things that I always care about, like being a good steward to the planet, but really to the planet and really to people.
Yeah, so totally agree. There's just a lot of opportunity to help people. I think one of the things that drives me is, again, I came from my personal sort of passion and interest in getting into this field is ultimately climate change mitigation. That was my impetus for all of this, right? What I wasn't thinking about at the time was, the equity factor, the human health, safety, comfort factor, any of that stuff. I was not. I'll be honest. I was not super jazzed about the idea of energy efficiency when I started working with Walker. I wanted to do solar, and like that was the cool sort of sexy stuff about sustainability and energy. And efficiency is like, okay, you're blowing in some insulation, big deal. It is a big deal, but it's not kind of that cool. Doesn't have the edge. What has excited me over the last 3 or 4 years is that, just like Aubrey said, you can make a huge difference in someone's life. It's one thing to reduce somebody's energy bill and now they're paying $20 or $30 less a month. But when you get a little lady who says, my feet have been cold for the last 20 years living in this house and now they're not cold, it hits you in a different way, and that's exciting. And I know that's a very specific example, but when we do these things at scale, you are improving the human experience for your community, and that is a really cool concept, and in so many ways too, right? So that's one thing that drives me. The other thing is that climate change presents a huge challenge, and therefore it presents a huge opportunity if you care to look at it that way. And part of what we talk about and are striving toward is developing and catalyzing local economies around the climate solutions. And in our case, with energy efficiency and even with some of that renewable energy tucked in, because our worlds do collide a lot, especially locally. And there's jobs to be had. There's a lot of houses to fix. Let's just take the city of Detroit. There's over 150 single family occupied homes in the city of Detroit. A lot of them were built before 1970. A lot of them, most of them, need insulation. They've got old furnaces, old water tanks. They're leaky and they're drafty. So you can just see the market exists there. We've also got folks in the city paying inordinate percentages of their income on their utility bills, a concept known as energy burden. So you got folks who are paying 6, 7, 8, 9, 10% of their annual income just on their utility bills. And that's a huge problem because it forces people to make choices like, do I buy food, do I buy medicine, or do I keep the lights and the heat on? So you've got opportunity, you've got chronic underemployment and unemployment in the city. You've got an opportunity to fix all these homes, reduce climate change impacts, and save people money, right? So that, to me, if you're a cook, that's a recipe for a really beautiful economy locally. And this is not something that just is a Detroit issue. This is all over the world, quite frankly. And so that's what excites me about energy efficiency, is that we have such a huge opportunity here. And really a lot of my job is to try and catalyze on that opportunity.
So thank you both for sharing. I always love that question because I feel like we get to know the real you. So Ben, thank you for being transparent there about how you feel about energy efficiency. But my grandparents also just recently took advantage of what Aubrey was describing. And the biggest takeaway from their fancy new thermostat is that they can see it better. They don't have to struggle anymore. So I definitely encourage it. I know the links are in the chat. And I want to pause here, though, for some questions before handing it over to Catherine.
Sorry if I missed it, if you might have said it before, but what are some things that you don't particularly like about your job?
Wow. So I'll go first. one of the challenges I think for Walker Miller is growth, right? And so I love the growth that we have, and I'm excited for the company. I think we're just now securing another contract in another major market outside of Michigan. But it can be challenging at times to help with that, and so therefore you can get stretched thin. But that, and I tell you guys that to be honest, because in every company that you work for, be it small or large, if they are trying to implement something new, it'll be growth, and it'll be a challenge to you. So what you have to do is you have to have a lot of communication and saying, yes, I can do this, and this is how I will do it. This is my status. Or in some cases, right now I'm not able to do all of this, and so my suggestion is we bring other folks in to help us out, right? So it's understanding the company's goals and what they're trying to commit to, and then being very honest with them about how to achieve that. And that's hard because you're telling people that, write their name on the paycheck, and, hey, I need help to actually do this. I need help so that I can help you make more money or spread whatever good that you are doing. So really, I mean, I love and boasting about Walker Miller and what we do. What we do is like, it's all gravy, it's we give out free stuff, we help people out on a daily basis. And that's our focus. And it's perfect for Carla, who's our founder. That's the kind of person she is. So the tough thing, the thing I don't like is the stretch, and but also at the same time, I learned to roll with it. I learned to communicate and use my words and communication. And sometimes I have to build business cases to help them grow effectively. So it doesn't. I want them to succeed, right? And some people sometimes love a company so much they'll give too much, and they'll strain themselves, which is not good for the company, right? And then there's the opposite, where people will pull back and just kind of step back and let things kind of fall apart. And both of those are bad.
Yeah, that's a good question, because there's always something, right? But we're always not necessarily thinking about it. I would say something that can be a little frustrating, but is also totally understandable, is that we are in a period that is very growth oriented, and honestly, we've been kind of growth oriented since I started, but the first three or so years were not like this. And part of that growth, I mean, just like any growth, there's growing pains. You bring people on, they don't work out. You are trying, you might spend all this time applying for a program, and then you don't, it doesn't come through, or you don't win the bid. And these are frustrating, but they're part of the growth. And ultimately you step back a little bit and you say, where were we last year? Where were we, just 3 years ago? And all of those efforts are part of that. So you just kind of have to put that aside and just work through them sometimes. And there are a lot of good days, and there are some more frustrating days. But I think pretty much any industry has that as well, any company.
Okay, awesome. Great question, Summer. Thank you for that. And I'm just noting the time, so I want to make sure we get through a couple more things here. And again, if anyone else has any questions, you're welcome to either put them in the chat, or at the next time we pause, you're welcome to ask a question. I wanted to move into quickly, or at least for a few minutes. If you could tell us a little, I know I've seen before in particular when Walker Miller is doing some job training / hiring programs sometimes, where they're offering to train you how to work in like a job like Aubrey's or in other. I'm curious if you could talk about some of those at Walker Miller that Walker Miller offers, and then also related to that, I guess if you do hire if you hire college interns, we'd love to learn more about that if you happen to know, or you might not be the exact people that do that at the company, but we'd love to learn more about internships. And then also the last thing is if there are other sort of job descriptions that you might want to throw out there for people to know about beyond just what the two of you do.
Yeah, for sure.
Ben, I think, yeah, you go first. This with the training. Ben is a training
cool.
master.
Yeah, no, I don't know about all that. So yes, so we did, Catherine is alluding to some workforce development that we've done over the past couple of years. I was totally new to this space, but found myself working very closely with the team. What we were actually doing was the basis of this workforce development was training folks on what are kind of known as building science or building science principles. So these are the core concepts and some of the deeper details that are required for people to understand if they want to become, energy auditors or home energy assessors of any kind. So this is like understanding where those drafts might be, understanding basic construction, knowing about various efficiencies of heating and cooling equipment, understanding how attic insulation and air sealing might interplay with the construction of your house and things like that. So let me step back real quick from that. There's a bit of a lack of that knowledge out in the world today. I alluded to the building of these sort of energy efficiency economies earlier, and what we're finding is that there's not a lot of these programs, a lot of these weatherization energy efficiency programs are driven by subsidies, and they're often targeted toward low-income customers. The deeper dive ones, not necessarily like the light bulb ones and the thermostat ones, but programs where folks go in and replace a furnace, replace an air conditioner, insulate an entire house, right? The industry that does that is largely driven by the subsidized sort of low-income programs. And the problem with that is that there's not a huge retail market out there. And if there's not a huge retail market, then there's really not a lot of growth in as far as the number of jobs. What we'd like to see, though, is, like I alluded to, there's tons of opportunity to do this. Even newer homes are not always built up to the proper energy efficiency standards. So throughout the state, there's need for this. Throughout the country, there's need for people to understand these concepts. We started this workforce development program to try and train folks to do that, and then pair them with the existing contractors out there that need those skill sets. We found it to be a bit challenging, and I won't go into the real challenges, but we were working with a crowd that was we were charged with working with low-income Detroiters who were unemployed, underemployed, returning citizens, meaning formerly incarcerated. And there's a whole host of challenges that goes along with workforce development for that sector. And I won't go into that, but Aubrey, I'm going to turn it to you to talk a little bit about like the range of jobs that you might see at Walker Miller.
Yeah, so we have a plethora of positions there. We have folks that interface with the customers directly, and the biggest group of people of team members we have are energy specialists, and those are ones that go into the homes and do the installation and like did the install and gave the advice on how to weatherize for Jade's grandma or grandparents. We have folks that do that for apartment buildings. They're called direct installers, and those are field folks. We have leaders for those groups, supervisors, and we have program managers that run those entire programs, both for the home energy consultation side and for what we call multifamily, as we call like the apartments and stuff. And then we have folks that help support those efforts, right? We have a whole call center that helps individuals sign up. That we because again we focus on customer service. We have folks call reps that call the customers after they've had the energy consultation performed and take a survey and see how it went. And if there's issues, they're there too, right? I mean, that's what a call center is for. If there's issues with anything we did, people call us and we jump right on it and take care of it. And then, so we have leadership that runs that as well. We have outreach where they do a physical engagement at events. Now, it's hard during COVID, although there are events where like people are, like Salvation Army is passing out turkeys and some food. We'll be there as well, signing people up. We get their information and we sign them up for these home energy consultations, and that's outreach. So with outreach, you need a little bit of communications background. You don't necessarily have to have a degree in communications, but your ability to communicate effectively in groups and in big group settings, and to be able to persuade people to get these appointments scheduled in like a finite amount of time. That takes some skills, takes people skills, interpersonal skills. We also have folks that work on engineering as well. That group does not work underneath me, although there are some engineers that do some work for us at the end. So we have folks that help determine, hey, this project that this apartment building wants to do, like cleaning all of its furnaces, right? And we'll give them through this legislation. We'll give some money towards that, a rebate towards having an entire building have all the furnaces, all the heat, HVAC units like tuned up or something like that. We'll have engineers to verify that that's supposed to happen, right? That they'll look at the envelope of the building and the units or whatever. They'll look at the actual unit that's there, the HVAC unit, and they'll make calculations. So there's engineering that does that. There's people who are very smart that kind of support all the technology we use and do the analytics and say, hey, we're hitting our numbers. We've gone to this many homes. Therefore, we save this amount of kilowatt hours for this week, amongst all of our customers, and they report that out so we could that management can see, so that every team member can see, and so we can report to our customer. So that takes a lot of understanding of technology. And one of the persons I think has an engineering degree, and then the other two individuals, I'm not certain what the degrees are, but it takes a lot of attention to detail, takes a bit of math, and it takes again communication skills, right? And understanding a little bit about statistics and probability, so you can report out, yeah, we're at 90% goal, and we have 2 months to go. We can meet that with 2 months to go. We can meet 100% of our goal for the year. So there are those positions, those analysts. Some of them call that. Some are called project coordinators. Those are the roles I explained. And then we have folks that build relationships between the property management companies or landlords of buildings and the contractors out there that could do upgrades in their HVAC systems, for their windows, anything that helps affects their energy consumption. So again, people skills, communication, attention to detail, being very organized, technology, and just a willingness to give great customer service kind of throughout all of our jobs, no matter if you're in the field or if you're working between contractors and the property owners, or if you're taking care of all the analytics and reporting out what is going on and keeping us on track, or outreach. So a lot of different careers. There's some different ones too in some of the other states. We're in Illinois. I believe we're going to be in another state at the end of the year, and we also are in New York.
Let me really briefly just add that, and because these go under the radar so often, but if you're an individual who wants to support a company that's doing right by the environment or doing right socially, but you're a finance major or an HR type person, we have plenty of those people too, and they are huge to the operations of our team. So we've got a great HR team identifying talent in this field. We've got finance folks who understand these energy programs and at least how to build them and everything. So if you're doing those things, don't think that you can't go on to work for a company that's that has the stuff in mind. We need those folks just as much as we need anybody else.
Awesome, thanks so much. So Jade, we can maybe quickly do our last prompt here, and we can also pause for any questions at the moment.
If we don't have any questions, I'll just move on for time's sake. If you both could give us some, any advice or recommended podcasts or newsletters or LinkedIn channels, whatever kind of resources people should be following that are interested in exploring this field a little bit more or getting into this field, anything there, professional networks to join, just resources in general though.
Yeah, so media-wise, I really like Green Tech Media. They're online publication. They're sort of broad clean energy sector, so batteries, solar, efficiency, whatever. They're great. They actually have a couple of podcasts as well. One of them is called The Energy Gang, and the other one is called The Interchange. The Energy Gang is a little bit more approachable. The Interchange tends to be a little bit more technical, but I think it's still super interesting. So those are both great if you're in the energy world. In Detroit, a couple of like groups with public meetings. There's a sustainability task force that's convened by City Councilman Scott Benson here in Detroit, where there are committees covering everything from water and stormwater, recycling, composting, energy efficiency, renewable energy. And those groups all get together typically monthly individually with their own meetings. And then there's also an at-large meeting where you can hear about what everybody's doing. Those are all public. So that's DetroitGreenTaskForce.org. Let me double check on that, right? Yeah, .org, DetroitGreenTaskForce.org. And there's a host of really great folks that are part of that and supporting sustainability things in the city of Detroit. I also kind of built a lot of my network from the U.S. Green Building Council, Detroit community or Detroit chapter. They have some events and also have sort of general meetings. In fact, I think we have one coming up next week where anybody can come in, sort of a network / learn about whatever the topic is that quarter and meet some people. So those would be my suggestions right now.
So there, I've kind of had my head down working so much that I haven't interfaced with the organizations I really love. Is Solidarity still running, Ben?
Yes, they sure are.
Yeah, Solidarity is a great one that really promotes renewable energy, as well as, EcoWorks is a nonprofit, right? But I'm certain they have like a lot of volunteer efforts that they're associated with, and they help lots of energy efficiency and renewable energy efforts all over Detroit. There are, did we lose? We good? There are, for media, I'm not certain. But there's organizations. There are organizations that are set up that you can search on LinkedIn that have to do with energy efficiency or advocacy. Right? We want to look for organizations that have advocacy for the environment and for reducing carbon footprint and for people and all the above. So there's a ton of things out there. There's a lot of Zoom calls like this that you can partake and listen in and find out what's going on. And then just to kind of throw this out there too, keep in mind with the new president on January 20th, there'll probably be a shift in the direction of being more energy efficient, and the efforts in renewable energy will probably pick up again. So this actually probably is the time to really research the opportunities, internships, and all things like that. I didn't answer that question earlier. We don't have any internships available at the moment, but we may. So please always look at our website. Look at other energy efficiency organizations and the advocacy groups that I mentioned. And you guys you'll find voices you want to hear and emulate, and you'll find opportunity. So just keep looking, don't stop. I'm glad you guys are a part of this.
Yeah, let me add to that list of publications, Planet Detroit, they're relatively new environmental periodical that's just done amazing work, and they do really great reporting. They now have a jobs board, which I think is staying relatively up to date. There's at least a few posts on there. So check out Planet Detroit. If you want to look a little bit more, if you're into the energy stuff, the Energy News Network is, if you Google that, you'll find it, and you can sign up. They have monthly or weekly or daily even digests of energy news going on. You can select your region. That's the only one that I actually read every day. They're great. So those are two good ones as well.
Thanks so much. Thanks, Jade, for doing that, that last piece there. So again, just with the interest of time, I don't want to keep you all, of course, feel free to hop off if you need to. Just want to wrap up by sharing, we took a bunch of notes of what Aubrey and Ben have been sharing with us today in the slide deck. And then we also have all of these links for how you can follow up from today's conversation with Ben and with Aubrey individually, links to Walker Miller, newsletter signups to stay connected with Let's Detroit and upcoming events. This recording will be on our YouTube channel. So all sorts of ways. This is what Ben's profile looks like on the Let's Detroit website. So again, if you visit letsdetroit.com and look and read through Ben's profile, you can connect with him directly by clicking the orange connect button, and that'll send him an email. So it's very easy to stay in touch, and we've got and Aubrey's LinkedIn page here too. So we do have, of course, we would love for you to stay connected with Let's Detroit and the Detroit Promise for more information about upcoming events and resources that we have to share going forward. We have an upcoming event next week if you're interested in this one with English. So she's another one of our Let's Detroit ambassadors. So we would love for you to join us for that one. She'll share a story about how she's been starting her business and how she's been pivoting during the pandemic as well.
She's amazing.
Yeah, she's awesome. So just check that out. And I just want to say thank you all for attending today and for taking the time to join us and for asking your questions. Again, please feel free to follow up with more questions that you have. And really just want to thank Ben and Aubrey for your time today, for joining us and chatting with us and sharing about your experiences. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you, Catherine, Jade, and everybody. Thank you.
We definitely appreciate this. So I hope everyone enjoyed. Thank you all for joining us today.
Yeah, yep. So I'll stay on for a minute if anyone has any other questions, but we hope you all have a great afternoon.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
See you all. Thanks.